Hey guys, welcome. We're going to talk through this lesson 1-1, your favorite class related, and the back sheet, because we didn't get a chance to go over it. So I do want, so if I gave you partial points and I said, go back and take a look at the key and revise your thinking, then go ahead and do that. And again, remember to try to do that in a different color pen so that I know how you're revising your thinking. So let's take a look. Question number 1. Check your understanding. Students at a local high school were asked which gaming system they prefer, the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, or neither. What's going on with the graph at the right that makes this misleading? So there's a couple things. So one of the things the student could have pointed out is notice it's not starting at 0. On the y-axis. So that might not be completely misleading. We do that a lot on the x-axis. If nothing's happening, let's say for the first 50 numbers or 100 numbers, like if we made a chart and x was the weight of all the students in class, we could scoot things over and not start until probably no one's under 100 pounds, right? So we could start the x-axis at 100, and it's not necessarily misleading. But here this is misleading because it looks like neither has a percentage of 0. So it's misleading because they're not starting at 0 in the y-axis. Therefore, this misleads us into thinking the neither category is 0%. Now there's another thing. If you were remembering from the lesson, we were working really, really hard to make sure our bars had the same width, right? Not in a mosaic plot. In a mosaic plot, we were very insistent on making it 5 times wider because there were 5 times as many students than teachers. But typically for all histograms and bar graphs, and for categorical data, we want bar graphs. It's very important that the widths are the same so that visually we're not just making it look like we're displaying more data. You also want to avoid pictures. So this is a picture of a PS3 and a picture of an iBox or an Xbox. And so I'm going to add that too. Also should avoid pictures. Pictograms are not mathematically accurate. So avoid pictograms because the widths of the bars are not the same. Now, another mathematical principle with this leaving out a 0 that I could have taken, and actually it's probably the way I would have answered it, is notice here how this bar looks about 3 units and this looks 9 units tall. So it looks like the PS3 is 3 times more preferred. But in reality, when I look at the numbers, it's 46 versus 49. So it's only 3% more preferred. So see how that's super misleading. So this was likely a chart put together by someone who worked at PS3 trying to show, oh, we're dominating over Xbox 360, when in fact they're not really dominating. They're only preferable by 3%. All right, let's take a look at the second question. Most of you are probably watching the video to get this one. In an article in the Journal of American Medical Association, it reports the results designed to see if St. John's wort is effective treating moderate or severe cases of depression. The study involved 338 patients, which were treating for major depression. The subjects were randomly assigned, received one of the 3 treatments. And so there were 3 treatments: St. John's wort, Zoloft, or a placebo. Okay, so each treatment is shown here. And then it says they were treated for an 8-week period. The two-way table summarizes this data. So the first thing I need to do is just kind of tally up these numbers because like we reviewed in our notes, in order to calculate these things, we need to have our raw data over our grand total, or one of our margins over our grand total, or one of our pieces of raw data over one of our margins. So this information is the way we're going to calculate that. So let's take a minute to just tally these up in case we need to use one or more of these numbers on the side or the grand total. And it says, what proportion of subjects in the study were randomly assigned to take St. John's warts? What proportion of the subjects? Okay, so that's our denominator. I have a total of 338 subjects. So of those who were St. John's warts. Okay, so hopefully you created this. And this is a marginal frequency. Right? And so it says what proportion? So that would be a correct answer. You could have also turned it into a number between 0 and 1. And then it says there are, explain why this makes sense. Well, if you have 3 treatments, you should give, and you're randomly assigning your subjects, it should be about a third of each. So I'm going to say this makes sense because that's about a third. And I had 3 treatment groups. Okay. Now, part B, find the distribution of the change in depression for the subject of the study using relative frequency. So this one would have been a little tougher. You may have had to kind of use your textbook. Some of us don't have our textbooks yet. But what they're asking here is also the marginal frequency, but they're asking for all of them for this margin, the change of depression. Okay, so the distribution of that, so this is the change of depression here, right? So I'm actually wanting all of these marginal frequencies over my grand total. So let's go ahead and do that. So for the full response, I got 91 out of 338. For the partial response, I got 55 out of 338. And for the no response, I got 198 out of 338. Now, if we were going to make a chart or something, usually you would see this, a distribution is usually something we see in a picture and we describe the distribution. They're not evenly distributed. Then it doesn't ask for it. I mean, you could have turned these into a decimal, so that's 0.27, 0.17, and 0.57. And notice I could have taken this information, all this should add up to 100% or 1. I could have taken this information and made a bar chart. So I could make that 3 blocks tall, and that's full response. Partial response, I could make that about 2 blocks tall, and that one would be 6 blocks tall. And this is how, if we did this as an activity, no response, we could look at the distribution and say it's not evenly distributed. In fact, it would be very obvious if I made a picture, and that's how we'd create that from the marginal frequencies. All right, last review question. What percent of the subjects, okay, so that's telling me my denominator, that's how many subjects I have, took Zoloft. So all of these people took Zoloft, but then they said this word and. So that's very powerful. That's going to tell me this is a joint frequency. So the word and means I want both Zoloft and I want full response. So I want 27 out of the 360. Or excuse me, 27 out of the 330. and it said what percent. So paying attention there, if I turn this into a decimal, and then I have to convert it to percent to answer the question as asked, 8%. Thanks for joining us, guys. Revise your thinking. You could do that with an eraser, or I would prefer another color pen, and look forward to seeing you